everyone, welcome back to my vlog. This is Efren and today we are going to tackle about the introduction to environmental science. So guys, are you ready? Now we will talk about introduction to environmental science. So there is a quote about that in every deliberation we must consider our impact on the next 7 generations. That was from Iroquois Confederacy. So what comes in your mind when you hear the word environmental science? So when we say environmental science, it is the study of the interaction of humans with the natural environment. So the environment includes all the conditions that surround living organisms such as climate, air and water quality, soil and landforms, presence of other living organisms. So the environmental science and the issues that it studies are complex and interdisciplinary. When we say interdisciplinary, it includes concepts and ideas from multiple fields of study. Decisions have impacts in all these fields of study. So as what you have seen in the picture. The environmental science deals with geology, forestry, ecology, natural science, sociology, political science, religion, mathematics, physics, chemistry, and engineering. There are also technology, culture, and nature. So a community decides to use coal for electricity as it is the cheapest source available. This is from the economics. So the coal must be mined from under the soil. From geology. So the coal must be transported to the population center by road or rail. That's for the engineering. So when it is burned at a power plant, air pollution is released. Some of that pollution is converted to acid in the atmosphere. That is from chemistry. So this falls as acid rain somewhere downwind. That's for meteorology. The acid stresses plants by affecting their nutrient absorption. That's from ecology. So laws are passed requiring the plant to install pollution scrubbers. That's from politics or political science. So the major environmental problems. So the resource depletion. A great deal of resources are needed to support the human population, to 7 billion. So the renewable resources can be replenished within a human lifetime, or it can be replaceable, such as timber or water. So the supply of non-renewable resources is replenished extremely slowly, if at all. This can be used up, so it can be not renewed easily. So example are coal, oil, and minerals. So the coal is a non-renewable resource. Over time, it will become more difficult and expensive to extract. So these are the world coal reserves. The United States, the Germany, the Kazakhstan, the Russia, China, Australia, India, South Africa, Serbia, and Ukraine. So the pollution. The pollution is a degradation or an undesired change in air, water, or soil that affects the health of all living things. So there are two kinds of pollution, the biodegradable pollution and non-degradable pollution. When we say biodegradable pollution, it will break down naturally over time. On the other hand, the non-degradable pollution does not break down. So the pollution, whether in air or water, can move and affect ecosystem far away from the source. So this map shows the areas with the highest concentration of air pollution. So as what you have seen in the picture, this is a picture of the map that shows the highest concentration of air pollution. So the loss of biodiversity. The number of species on the earth is unknown but estimated to be in the tens of millions. So when we say biodiversity, it is the number of different species present in a specific ecosystem. On the other hand, the extinction. The extinction or the complete loss of species is a natural event that can be accelerated by human actions. So there are 5 known major extinction events in Earth's history. And the most recent major extinction, about 65 million years ago, caused 75% of all species to disappear from the Earth. So believed to have been caused by a meteor impact. So assuming no catastrophic event occur, extinction normally occur at a pretty slow rate called the background rate. So it is normal background extinction rate for mammals is 1 every 200 years. So scientists believe we may be in the midst of the next major extinction event due to human influences. So Australia has experienced 27 mammal extinctions since 1788, primarily due to the influence of European settlers. So the image shows the short-tailed hopping mouse, and it is now extinct in Australia. Now let's proceed to the environmental ethics. When we say environmental ethics, it is the discipline that studies the moral relationship of human beings to the environment. So what is the value of the environment? So what moral responsibility do we have in dealing with the major environmental problems that result from our resource consumption? Which needs should be given the highest priority in all decision making? So the main categories of ethics have emerged in human culture in modern history. So the anthropocentrism, or literally means human-centered. So this set of ethics protects and promotes of human interests or well-being at the expense of all other factors. Often places an emphasis on short-term benefits while disregarding long-term consequences. On the other hand, the ecocentrists, they believe that nature deserves to exist for its own sake, regardless of degree of useful to humans. So the preservation of ecosystem or other living things takes priority over human needs. Now let's proceed to the resource conservationist. It is the focus of the resource conservationist was to protect open land. So the National Park System and the National Forest System were both created during this time. So the modern environmentalism. In the year 1952, the Cuyahoga River in Ohio caught fire due to all the pollution that had accumulated in it. So Rachel Carson published a book in the year 1962 entitled Silent Spring about the effects of pesticides on large predatory birds, particularly the bald eagle. So this began a public awakening to a threats of pollution and toxic chemicals to humans as well as other species. This movement is called the modern environmentalism. Now let's proceed to the global environmentalism. So it increased travel and communication, enables people to know about daily events in places unknown in previous generations. So the global environmentalism explores issues and problems over the entire world, not just within the local community. So the image shows the live stream footage of the Deepwater Horizon oil spill in 2010 that was watched worldwide. So the tragedy of the commons. So a great deal of progress has been made since the birth of the modern environmentalism, but many debates still rage on. An ecologist named Garrett Hardin wrote an essay called The Tragedy of the Commons, in which it describes the source of environmental problems as a conflict of short-term interests of individuals versus long-term interests of civilization and the earth itself. So a small village consists mostly of farmers that raise and sell sheep at a nearby city. So the only place for the sheep to graze is a commons in the center of the village. So a common is an area that belongs to no individual. It is shared by the entire society. So likely outcome, villagers obtain as many sheep as possible, allowed to graze in the commons, so maximize short-term financial gain. So what if the common was instead divided into sections that was owned by each villager? So the answer is because the land is owned, individuals are much more likely to plan and use it for the long term. So the tragedy of the commons describes the likeliness of a common area being exploited or short-term economic gain. So modern examples include the atmosphere and oceans. So the picture shows the Norilsk in Russia and the Zadar in Croatia. Now let's proceed to the economics and the environment. So the economics has a huge influence in environmental decision making. One of the most basic principles of economics is the supply and the demand. So the greater the demand for a limited resource, the higher the price. So this image shows the world oil demand versus the supply. So another important economic idea is the cost or the benefit analysis. This question whether the benefit of doing something justifies the economic cost. So, Waukegan Harbor cleanup efforts starting in 2010 will cost over $30 million. So, the picture shows the monitoring of fish, water, and sediment, and the dredging the bottom to remove accumulated pollution. Now the case study. The case study of Bhopal pesticide plant. So in December of the year 1984, a pesticide factory located near the town of Bhopal, India, leaked a large amount of toxic chemicals into the air. So the chemical resulted in an immediate death toll of about 3,000 people, with 8,000 more dying of long-term health ailments. So a total of 558,125 injuries were reported to the Indian government. So a settlement of $470 million was reached by Union Carbide and the Indian government. It was the India's disaster. Now let's proceed to the ethics and the economics. So the settlement was not sufficient to treat all of the long-term health issues stemming from the disaster. So the site itself was also not remediated. So in the year 1999, the Union Carbide was purchased by Dow Chemical to properly compensate and treat all individuals affected by this disaster. Dow Chemical would have to pay billions of dollars in the settlements. So the Dow Chemical was a yearly profit of over $2 billion, with total assets worth nearly $70 billion.